I've always loved camping. Getting away from the noise of the city always felt peaceful. Sitting around a fire with friends, sleeping under the stars, it was supposed to be relaxing. But after one trip a few years ago, I'll never think about camping the same way again. Because that weekend, I learned that the scariest thing in the woods isn't always wild animals or ghosts, it's people. It was late summer when me and two friends, Chris and Evan, decided to spend a weekend out at Lake Merrow. It's a pretty remote spot, about an hour's hike away from the nearest parking lot. Not many people go there, which is exactly the point. We packed light, just a couple tents, sleeping bags, enough food and beers for 2 nights. Chris even brought his fishing gear. The first day was great. We set up camp right by the lake, grilled hot dogs, swam until the sun went down. It was one of those days that felt perfect. But that night, everything changed. I woke up sometime after midnight. At first, I thought it was Evan moving around his tent, but then I realized I was hearing footsteps, not the crunch of branches from some deer. These were slow, careful footsteps. Circling our camp, I froze. Holding my breath, straining to listen, my tent zipper was half open, just enough to see the dying firelight outside. And then I saw him, a man, standing just beyond the glow of the fire. He wasn't moving. He wasn't saying anything. He was just watching. I wanted to yell, but fear kept me frozen. My brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was another camper. Maybe he was lost. But something about the way he stood there motionless told me this wasn't normal. Eventually, I worked up the courage to whisper, "Chris, Evan." Chris stirred and mumbled something, but by the time he sat up, the man was gone. When I told them what I saw, they brushed it off. "Probably some drunk hiker," Evan said. "You scared yourself." I wanted to believe that, so I forced myself back to sleep. The next morning, I convinced myself it was nothing. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks. But when I went down to the lake to wash my face, I noticed something in the dirt near the waterline. Footprints, larger ones. Fresh, leading right towards our camp. I called Chris and Evan over. They didn't look as calm as they pretended to be the night before. "Maybe he was just passing through," Chris muttered. But the tracks didn't pass through. They stopped right by our tents. We tried to shake it off, went fishing, cooked lunch, cracked a couple beers. By afternoon, we were laughing again, almost convincing ourselves I'd overreacted. But that second night, everything escalated. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of fabric tearing. I sat up, heart racing, and realized it was coming from Evan's tent. He screamed, and Chris and I stumbled out of our tents with flashlights. The front of Evan's tent had been slashed wide open, and standing at the edge of the trees was that same man. This time, we all saw him. Chris shouted, "Hey, what the hell do you want?" and shined the flashlight at him. The man just stood there. His clothes were dirty, his hair was long and wild, and the look in his eyes, it was empty. Finally, he turned and walked back into the woods. We stood there shaking, trying to figure out what to do. No cell service, no weapons besides a hatchet and a couple of knives. We considered hiking out right then, but the trail back was pitch black. If he was waiting for us, we'd be sitting ducks. So we stayed up together, sitting by the fire until morning, jumping at every sound we heard. By daylight, we packed our gear fast. None of us said much. We just wanted to get out of there. But when we went to grab our food cooler, it was gone. Dragged off into the woods and carved into the side of a nearby tree, deep and jagged, were the words, "Don't come back." We hiked out as fast as we could, constantly looking over our shoulders. Every broken branch, every rustle of the leaves made us flinch. When we finally reached to the parking lot, we weren't alone. Across the gravel, leaning against the tree line, we saw the same man. He didn't follow us this time. He just stood there, watching. We threw our gear in the car and sped off, hearts pounding, not looking back. We reported it all to the park ranger, but they didn't find anyone. Said it was probably an isolated incident, but I know what we saw. And I'll never forget the sound of that tent ripping open, or the look in the man's eyes. People go camping for peace and quiet, but out there, in the middle of nowhere, you're completely exposed. If someone wants to hurt you, there's nowhere to run.